beggars, bums, vagrants, good-for-nothing layabouts, stains upon society, tramps. These are some of the words that pop into the minds of many people when we think about the homeless. This begs the question, have we become so distanced from the poor that we fail to see them as people like you and I? Particularly here in the West, homeless people are demonized as something despicable. Today on Inquisitor, we are on a mission to explore what it's like to be homeless. Who are the homeless? How do we as a community treat them? And what does Islam have to say about them? This is Inquisitor.
Being homeless is not easy. I'm discovering that there's a lot of difficulties that people on the streets face which we wouldn't normally understand. But Gordon's really enlightened me. Gordon, can you tell me something about your personal experiences?
Like when you're at home, you're with your friends.
A lot of it does come down to social problems. I mean, we're social creatures at the end of the day. Everybody wants somebody to talk to. But people on the streets are often just neglected completely. There's a lot of stereotypes associated with homeless people. What's it like to just have a good conversation?
It's good, you could get interesting.
We've just met, haven't we?
Yes, we met, we've been about here an hour, we've had coffee and ice cream.
Yeah. I did just buy you ice cream. How did it feel like when I got you ice cream?
Call my toothache down.
Apart from your toothache.
Felt nice, you're a very nice man, very kind. It's nice because we never get ice cream because we can't afford it. That very surprised you bought an ice cream.
When was the last time you had ice cream?
We were in the bin and we found some ice cream in the bin.
Could you tell me some of the difficulties?
The main difficulties is in the winter. When it's cold, you know what I mean? Yeah, frosty, when it's been snowing, like, you know what I mean? Because over the years, when it has been back in the 90s and that, you know what I mean? Yeah, mid-90s, late 90s, when it was snowing badly. I used to wake up sometimes covered in snow, like, yeah. You also get the idiots coming around, like, Fridays and Saturdays, like, you know, giving you a bit of grief, like, yeah, you know what I mean? Just mainly name-calling, like, yeah, and saying they'll come back and bang you out while you're asleep.
Have the homeless become invisible to us? An experiment was carried out in New York City where family members dressed up like homeless people and sat in the street. To see if they would be recognised by their beloved ones, their unsuspecting uncles, cousins and husbands were filmed as they walked by. Every person in the experiment walked past without realising that the homeless person they just walked past was in fact their loved one, only dressed like a homeless person. When the footage was shown to these people, they were utterly shocked that they'd failed to recognise their loved ones, and some even burst into tears. What they realised is that when someone is homeless, nobody pays any attention. They become part of the street just like a lamppost or a bin. I started thinking maybe if my brother or even my own mother was on the street, would I recognise them? Or would I just walk past? The Muslims believe that Imam Ali alayhi salam said that people are only of two kinds. Either they are your brother in faith or your brother in humanity.
The objective here is to inspire us to realize that we are all sons and daughters of the same line. We are all brothers and sisters, regardless of lineage, race, creed or religion. How then can we just walk past when we know someone is hungry or cold?
before there used to be a bit of humanity, a bit of compassion in this country. Don't have it anymore. People have become a lot more blinkered. People are only interested in their own agendas now. England's become a lot harder. So I struggle out here every day. I mean, I was walking down Warm Lane one day and saw this guy lying on the road, and like everybody was just like stepping over him. He was unconscious at a bus stop and people were just like stepping over him, just, you know, yeah, like he was nobody. Do you know what I mean? Sort of get the opinion as like, if I was a dog, yeah, I think people care more about dogs than they do about human beings.
The people who just walk past and they don't give you anything, or they don't treat you like a human being, what do you have to say to them?
Hi, how are you? Are you okay? Having a nice day? How's things? You say it's okay. And you just pass by, or you just say, we'll see you next time. But I don't expect things from people all the time, you know. You shouldn't, because you're not earning it. Sometimes in life where you get too much into the street and you're money mad and you need money, you've got to have money, you know. It gets to you and you start looking like you, and people can see it on your eyes. You just got to have money, you know. It drives you crazy. But then when you stop to think, you don't need it.
The question is, why are people homeless? Surely, in our country, benefits are provided and the homeless have the opportunity to seek help and accommodation. Often we assume that people on the streets are there by choice or due to their own irresponsible behaviours, drug abuse and alcoholism. But again, this is a negative stereotype associated with the homeless, which is not accurate.
Well, let me ask you a question. What would you do, yeah? Alright, they say that all homeless people are drunks or drug addicts. I'm neither, yeah? I'll take a drug test here, I'll take an alcohol test here, and I'll pass both. Neither. But, what would I say? Okay, if you had to face sleeping under a cardboard box with rats running all over you and biting you and blah blah blah, whatever, yeah, then wouldn't you take something to try and, you know, numb the pain, you know, to knock you out?
A lot of people will walk past you thinking, oh, he's just a bum and he's just...
Yeah, I'll get loads of that, like, yeah, or get a life, or go and get a job. Oh, look, you can't get a job because you haven't got a place, like, yeah. It's a catch-22 for us. Without the place, you can't get a job, like, yeah, because where they're going to send you their wages to and whatever else, like, yeah, you know what I mean, yeah, or how they get in contact with you. Yeah. You know what I mean, yeah, so it's not as easy as that, like, yeah, you know what I mean, yeah. And, you know, I mean, what, get a life? I've got a life. Maybe it's not as good as some people's because they're indoors and they've got jobs and whatever else and they've got misses and all that sort of stuff, like, yeah. But I've still got a life. Yeah. I remember years ago, one of my mates, like, yeah, he was always giving it, no, I won't touch the wank. And he was on the crack, like, yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, so I said, right, I'm going to give you two options. You either give it up or you're going to go down in a spiral, like, yeah, where you'll end up...
Give up the drugs?
You know what I mean? Yeah, yeah, give up the drugs or else I'll eat you. You know what I mean, yeah? And he went, well, like, I don't want you to hit me. I went, right, okay then. I says, right, you know we're on Bedford Street. For at least the next week or so, you're going to come up Bedford Street, like, yeah, you're not leaving Bedford Street for any reason. You know what I mean, yeah? You're going to do a cold turkey. You know what I mean, yeah? So we did, like, yeah, I took him up there and he stayed with me for a week. Then I went, right, okay then, like, yeah, today, I'm going to let you go to the day centre, like, yeah, get yourself scrubbed up, showered, whatever, like, yeah, you know what I mean, yeah? Then I want you back 2 weeks later, like, yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, £7 a pound, you come off the aircraft, like, yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. So obviously, he was just a puffhead and a drinker after that, like, you know what I mean?
So did you stop him from doing drugs?
Yeah.
Is he clean now?
Yeah, he's that clean. He's actually down in Portsmouth now, like, with a wife and 2 kids.
Wow. So because you were that forceful with him, He didn't do drugs anymore?
No. And then he went down to Portsmouth, got in with some lassie down there, and now he's got 2 kids and he's married. And he's working in, I think it's a post office or something now, by all accounts.
Before that, how long was he on the streets for?
About 12 years it was.
Wow, so after 12 years and him being addicted to drugs,
Yeah.
you got him off the streets?
Yeah, I got him off the drugs, and then I helped him hook his ideas up so he'd go wherever, like, you know what I mean? He went to Portsmouth and got married, 2 kids, got a job. I think it's, sure someone said it was a post office. You know what I mean? Yeah,
So sometimes all somebody needs is somebody to
kick up the backside.
I kick up the backside, but also, I mean, it was tough love. You were there by them, and you forced them to.
I'll give him one option. Rather better yourself, mate, or I'll give you the backhand, like.
I wish somebody did that with me sometimes.
Well, I mean, I've had it to me, like, yeah, but I mean, like, it doesn't work with me. I'm just an old stubborn git. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And there's a hole which I'm going through it. It's like a mouthpiece.
That's how you entertain yourself?
Yeah.
Basically, Gordon has carved a fake flute to entertain himself. Do you ever get bored?
I do get bored. I get bored, so I walk to different destinations. I do a lot of things, you know. I used to go to the church and just sit in church.
So, Gordon, do you believe in God?
Yes, I believe in God. I used to sit there, you know, and just pray, to sit there and think till I thought enough and just pray to God and just, you know, just walk out and know God's answered.
How do you pray?
No, I just sit quietly. I look at all the pictures in the church. I close my eyes and just stand sit straight. I just pray.
What do you pray for?
I just say the Lord's Prayer, and I don't pray for anything really, because you shouldn't ask the Lord for anything. And He can go through my mind, and He can figure everything out, you know. Because some of these homeless centres, right, they're very nice, and they haven't even got enough to give out.
When it comes down to the day centres and whatever, I mean, like, they give it, oh, well, we can do this for you, we can do that for you, like, yeah, but hold up, I've just told you I don't want that. Give me my own place, like, yeah, or don't bother, like, yeah, you know what I mean, yeah, because, like, I won't go into hostels, because there's too many drugs in there, like, yeah, you know what I mean, yeah.
You see, what it comes down to is statutory homelessness. If you become homeless, God forbid, you might expect your local authority to provide you with accommodation. However, not all homeless people are entitled to housing. And even if you are entitled to housing, it may be some time before you are allocated permanent accommodation. In England, Scotland and Wales, only statutory homeless people are entitled to housing. This means you are eligible for public funds, can prove that you are unintentionally homeless, and can prove that you are in priority need. Only once you've passed these stringent tests will you be considered statutorily homeless. And only then do local authorities have a duty to house you. The 1996 Housing Act classified those in the category of priority need as pregnant women, dependent children, someone vulnerable as a result of old age, mental illness or handicap or physical disability or some other special reason, and someone homeless or threatened with homelessness as a result of an emergency such as flood, fire or other disaster. Although most people on the streets of the UK fit into the demographic of being white and middle-aged, there's a huge number of young people who end up on the streets. The dangers unknown to them, they can be abducted, pulled into the wrong crowds and trafficked. Many young people run away from home or are forced out and don't know where to turn. As a result, they end up rough sleeping. But why?
To say that I was robbed of my childhood would be an understatement. At the age of 4, I witnessed my father abusing my mother. Before long, my 2 sisters and I were also physically abused. My father finally left the family home, but he was simply replaced by a string of violent men who continued the physical and mental abuse of me and my sisters. My mother eventually found a long-term boyfriend, but true to form, she chose someone who tormented, bullied and beat her daughters. And rather than protect us, she neglected us. We went unclothed, unfed and unloved by our mum, who was supposed to be nurturing us. Soon after turning 16, I was forcibly thrown out of my home and told never to return. I was alone, afraid and completely unprepared for the dangers of the streets. It's no surprise that I began to self-harm, and it wasn't long before I attempted to take my own life.
I am the eldest of 3 children. I had a troubled and unstable childhood, with my schizophrenic father leaving the family when I was 4. My mother would often take her frustrations out on her children, and with me being the only boy, I often bore the brunt of her attacks. My earliest memory is being kicked hard in the stomach by my mum. I was 5 at the time. By the age of 15, I was regularly sleeping on benches or in a derelict flat. I was surrounded by danger, but it was still better than suffering violence at home. After 4 years of living rough, my physical and mental health was in a terrible state. I turned to drink, self-harming, and even became suicidal.
Alone in London is one of the organisations tackling homelessness in the UK. They explain how dysfunctional relationships can lead to people rough sleeping. Most families experience periods of conflict and a breakdown in communication, especially between young people and their parents. When engaged in a conflict with someone or engaged in a negative relationship, we often fail to recognise that we have entered into a dysfunctional cycle. Some of the key causes of family conflict or breakdown that can lead to homelessness include mental health issues, finance and debt, step-parents, overcrowding, domestic violence, unemployment, leaving prison, emotional, physical, sexual and mental abuse.
Growing up, I never felt safe. My mother suffered severe mental health problems and mentally and physically abused me. Sometimes she would starve me. As I grew older, my mother's behaviour became even more abusive. I'd be kept locked in the house during the day, only to be kicked out at night. On another occasion, I was chased around the house with a hammer. Things got out of control soon after I turned 16. As I tried to leave the house one day, my mother and uncle dragged me to the floor. They kicked and stamped on me and smashed my phone so I couldn't call for help. My mother told me she wished I had never been born. The relationship between me and my mother broke down completely. I was kicked out. I didn't have anywhere to go. I didn't have any money. I didn't know what to do. One night, I ended up in a park and wandered around in the dark, too frightened to stop and sleep.
As a child, I lived with my parents and 7 siblings in a London council house. My mother was a heavy drinker and drug user and abused me regularly. Once, she smashed my head against the toilet seat and split it open. She didn't know what she was doing. I tried to get away from the abuse by moving in with my sister, but her boyfriend turned against me too, and I suffered a lot of mental abuse. Finally, I was kicked out of my sister's home at the age of 13. I was homeless for the first time and bounced from hostel to hostel throughout the rest of my teenage years. I was alone and demoralised, reduced to begging for change to afford clothes and food. Soon, I dropped out of school too. I'd lost my trust in people and life. When I turned 18, it became more difficult to get a place to sleep in hostels. For the first time in my life, I had to sleep rough. If I had a sleeping bag, I slept in doorways. Otherwise, I just had to find a blanket and lie someplace. I got chest infections, colds and chronic diarrhea.
People are rarely given a glimpse into the lives of real people. The media has the final say on how groups of people are defined. The harsh realities are often too depressing for us to even think about. One thing that has to change is our thinking that people are homeless out of choice. Rarely do people choose to live on the streets.
I've had rats running over me, I've had rats nibbling on my lips.
On your lips?
Yeah, I've had rats bite me. I was in my sleeping bag and I had some cardboard over the top of me. And I was in my sleeping bag underneath the cardboard. Anyway, this guy proceeded to piss on me, to urinate on me. I've had someone try to set me on fire. Yeah, the only thing that saved me was the fact that I'd opened my eyes. I thought it was rain that was like hitting my face when I was in my sleeping bag one night. I thought it was rain. It wasn't. It was a guy that was throwing petrol on me to burn me.
6 geezers come along like one night, you know what I mean? Yeah, try to give me and my pals some grief. So we had a little scuffle with them, like, you know what I mean? Yeah, put them in the place. And then it was, well, back to the kit bags and go to sleep, like, you know what I mean? Yeah.
So when you're on the streets, you really have to toughen up?
Yeah, you got no option, like, yeah, because, like, if you don't, well, people just think, you know, he's another little dafty, like, yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, we'll just do whatever. I mean, years ago, on the other side, like, yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, there was a group of young'uns, like, going around, like, yeah, and if there was one person on his own, his kit bag, he used to kick him to death.
Why did these people do this?
Because they haven't got the mentality to know what it's all about, like, yeah, because they don't know what it's about. What I think, like, yeah, is because they don't know what it's all about, they have this mentality that it shouldn't happen, like, yeah, you know what I mean? Well, by rights, it shouldn't happen. Not at this day and age.
Well, people shouldn't be on the streets.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, but I mean, obviously, for whatever reason or another, they've come down here to try and better themselves, and hasn't happened. They've ended up on the streets, and well, once you get into that like routine, it's hard to get out of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it's
why is it hard?
Well, because a lot of people, they tend to they adapt to the way of life, like, yeah. The hardness, like, yeah, you know what I mean? The harshness and whatever, like, yeah, you know what I mean? So they just think, well, this is my life now.
Why are you awake 24 hours a day?
Because I don't know, I like to be awake. I like to be awake because I feel if I'm awake, I know what's going on. I know what's going on. You know, I can see whatever's going on. Even if I can sit here and I know there's a shadow coming straight away.
Finding himself on the streets at the age of 18, Gordon had no money, no food, and no home. He was approached several times by men offering him meagre amounts of money. In exchange, they asked for a big price. The homeless not only suffer from the constant danger of verbal and physical abuse, but they are also exploited. Prostitution is a harsh reality among many.
It's rubbish. Living on the streets, prostitution, which is crap. Being a hooker, it's crap.
The first time you were approached by men, what did you do?
I was in Manchester Gay Village, and they were called Brian and Brian. One owns a hotel, one owns a club. One's from Liverpool, I think the other one's from Manchester, and they just stripped off them and they gave me £40, and I had no food.
Instead of viewing the homeless as part of the society, they are often treated with neglect and become pariahs. The people's perception of homeless people is what must change. A hadith states that the Holy Prophet said, "I will never abandon 3 things as long as I live: riding on a donkey without a saddle, sitting on the ground with the slaves, and feeding the beggars with my own hands." Sometimes it's not about money. It's about how we see people who, for whatever reason, do not have the same luxuries the common people have.
If you could speak to the world right now, what would you say to them?
You don't have to worry about my circumstances.
Why not?
Just be aware.
Well, Gary, what we're trying to do is we're trying to inspire people to give more to the poor.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a message that you want to give to people who have certain stereotypes associated with homeless people?
All I've got to say, like, is don't believe that everybody is the same, like, yeah, out here. There's a lot of good people out here, like, yeah. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of scumbags as well. You know what I mean, yeah? But there is a lot of good people, like, yeah, you know what I mean, yeah? What would try and better themselves, but they've got stuck in a rut and they don't know what else to do, like, yeah, this is their life. They've been here too many years, like me, like, yeah, you know what I mean, yeah? But that doesn't make me a bad person. whatever you do, if you can help it, don't fall out on the streets, like, yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, because it's not as rosy as some people will make it out like. And don't go on the drugs. You know what I mean? Yeah, stay away from the drugs.
Otherwise, Gary will give you...
Well, come down and give you a right hander.
The difference between me and the majority of society is the number of zeros you got in your bank account. And at the end of the day, a zero is nothing.
Simply by talking to the homeless, one can affect the person in a positive way. In Islam, it is believed that even a smile can be an act of charity.
Lots of people, most people in fact, don't know what it's like to be hungry. During Ramadan, which is a month in the Islamic calendar, Muslims basically fast, so they don't eat. As long as the sun is in the sky, they don't eat any food and they don't drink any water. And what it does is it gives us an idea of what it's like to not have any food or water. And it builds up this sort of understanding of what the poor are going through. And this means that Muslims are generally more charitable. How do you feel about that, Wood?
That's good. Because when people haven't had anything to eat, or like they don't have any help, then it's good to be there.
The month of Ramadan is fast approaching, and basically what it is a month in the Islamic calendar where Muslims fast. Mm-hmm. And what it does is we don't eat when the sun is in the sky or drink anything.
Yeah, you have to eat in the morning, like, don't during the early hours of the morning. Yeah.
So basically what it does is it gives us an idea of what it's like to be hungry. And it's God's way of teaching us how to feel the plight of the poor.
Yeah. I've never really thought about it before. Just make sure you look after yourselves, like, don't starve yourselves all together, like, you know what I mean? Yeah.
I'm much happier now, making good progress and making friends for the first time. I found out about Centrepoint when another hostel referred me there. Staff quickly recognised that I was experiencing mental health issues and was showing signs of depression, anxiety and schizophrenia. But with careful guidance, I've become to learn how to manage his conditions.
I was referred to Centrepoint and the dark cloud hanging over my life began to lift. It was such a good experience. No matter what I needed, there was always someone to get advice from. I learned to look after myself and they encouraged me to stay in education. I completed my A-levels and will be studying a business degree at university this autumn. Despite everything, things are looking up.
Eventually, I was admitted to hospital. I had my first shower for a very long time. Finally, feeling clean and relaxed. Being at Centrepoint meant that I'd finally had the warm and safe room. My dream job is to be an international communication and security analyst. So I'm studying hard to gain A-levels in economics, philosophy and politics. I'm so grateful that my talent is being nurtured.
Despite my terrifying past, there was finally a glimmer of hope in my life. I have been working hard with Centrepoint's mental health team to try and leave behind the image I have of myself as disgusting, an identity I picked up from the years of abuse and neglect.